just from the top, the approval of the minutes.
Okay,
Okay,
so
I again move the approval of the minutes.
And I
Joel's
second it.
motion, Rich second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Meeting's passed. Jennifer, did you get that okay?
Yes, I did, thank you.
So is audio up?
Yep, we're good now, Rob. So I'll go
Okay.
on to, the third item.
Third item, public hearing.
Great. Thank you again. So let me try this one more time to share. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, as Rob mentioned, this is a public hearing for property about at the 1700 block of Mix Road within the area of city impact, and this is being referred to as the Harvest Hills Short Plat. And so there's two actions, a rezone and a preliminary plat for this property. There we go. Applicant's proposing to rezone a 13.31 acre area, generally located 1700 block of Mix Road in the area of city impact. The proposal is to rezone the property from the current agricultural forestry zone to the farm ranch zone. And then the preliminary plat to create 4 lots, and those 4 lots range from 3 acres to about 3.61 acres in size, referred to as Harvest Hills Short Plat. And then per the area city impact agreement, all application materials are submitted to the county routes to the city, and the Planning and Zoning Commission conducts one public hearing and puts forth a recommendation onto the county, and the county ultimately makes the final decision. So we're at that stage of Planning and Zoning putting forth a recommendation to the county. So just to familiarize yourself with the subject property, it's highlighted in red at the center of your screen. You can see Mix Road meanders its way, and then the property has frontage on Mix Road. You got the curve here before it heads due north. Highway 95 is off to the east here. There's a remnant railroad right-of-way that used to extend in the northerly direction here. Primarily surrounded by agricultural land. There is some rural residential property. This was a recent development here within the county, Swede Lane development there. And then Hardin Road to the south, and of course you have the U of I property to the southwest beyond your screen there. Closer view of the property, like I said, primarily just surrounded by agricultural land, and then some rural properties there. Taking a look at the comp plan designation, the subject property is currently designated as rural and agriculture. You do have auto urban residential further to the south, and then the properties adjacent to 95, primarily on the east side of 95 there, would be the suburban residential designation. So taking a look at what the comp plan says about that designation, it's intended to allow continued use of agricultural purposes with allowances for limited residential development at very low densities. Shown in the future land use plan are outside the 10-year growth area and beyond the area for which the city is prepared to provide adequate facilities and services during the horizon year of the comp plan. Residential development options allow septic wells, septic public water, where applicable and warranted at very low densities, consistent with the intended agricultural character. And then it points us to appropriate zoning designations of ag forest and farm ranch and outdoor recreation, which happens to be the proposal before you tonight. So taking a look at the current zoning in the area, primarily agricultural, forestry. You do see pockets of suburban residential, and that suburban residential comp plan designation to the northeast. And the proposal would be to rezone this property to the farm ranch designation. Taking a look at the zoning code, pointing to the farm ranch designation, it's really intended to permit agricultural, outdoor recreation, and other open land uses to be maintained at the same time to set minimum standards for development of similar new uses in order that this open zoning district be protected against spasmodic, disorderly, and indiscriminate development until such time as another appropriate use of the land of the zoning district has been determined. And then really a range of uses in the farm ranch, including single-family dwellings, market and community gardens, so some of the urban agriculture, child care facilities, public parks and rec facilities, and also allows some limited bed and breakfast inns within that zone. Brings us to the preliminary plat, Harvest Hills short plat, proposing to divide the 13.31 acre into 4 lots, and those are one lot of 3 acres in size, one of 3.09, and then 2 additional lots of 3.61 acres. 3 of the lots would share an approach on a mixed road. The other one would just have a dedicated approach. So you'd essentially have 2 approaches onto mix to serve the 4 lots. This is the preliminary plat that was submitted. So you can see the 4 lots here. This is Mix Road coming up and curving and then heading north. This is the old Burlington Northern Railroad right-of-way through here. And this is give you an idea as to the access for these lots. Coming off a common approach off a Mix Road, would share the driveway there and then branch off to the individual lots to provide access. And then there would be just one access for that property there to the northwest off of Mix Road. Mix Road in the area, there are portions that are, it's kind of a collector designation, then it transitions to minor arterial as it approaches where we have the future alignment of the highway bypass that runs in that northwest quadrant. You kind of have 2 different designations adjacent to the subject property. It is developed as a 24-foot wide paved roadway. There's 2 travel lanes, north-south, minimum gravel shoulders on both sides. And as part of this plat, the engineering department's recommending an additional 10 feet of right-of-way dedication and that the frontage improvements be required as part of the subdivision development. And this is the thoroughfare plan and the comprehensive plan, so showing future roadway alignments and projections through the area. You can see that Mix Road is the green color is a collector designation, and then at some point adjacent to the subject property transitions to minor arterial, and then this is the alternate highway bypass, what they refer to as the ring road, on that alignment there, shown in the northwest.
Mike, where's the city boundary? Is it just outside of this drawing?
The city boundary is, yeah, down here, further down by
So are we
the
talking
radio station.
more than a quarter of a mile or on this property?
You're about probably a quarter mile to a half mile away.
Okay,
And also through the property, you see a minor arterial projection of a roadway in order to connect Highway 95. It runs east-west. This is real general as far as that alignment. You know, topography is going to dictate exactly where that goes. And so, you know, as part of this, we really need to account for future roadways through this property. It is part of a larger 58.84 acre parcel, and so that's going to leave that southern portion, which is 45.53 acres, and that's the remnant property. And then the remnant property, you know, the real issue with the subdivision plat before you tonight is that we just can't serve it with utilities based upon where utilities are currently located at the northern city limits boundary, as well as the topography it would take to get gravity sewer and water in the area. And so, but the property to the south is you know, much more developable as far as connecting to city utilities. And so staff would recommend that east-west street be dedicated and constructed as part of the future development of that remnant property, not at this time, and that the applicant enter into a development agreement in order to do that. And then the engineering department does not feel that a minor arterial street is warranted for this segment and is therefore recommending that the street be dedicated and constructed as a collector street standard in the future. And this is a idea of what this remnant parcel looks like, the 45.53 acres, which are part of the current property that aren't being proposed as part of the subdivision at this time. So staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission conduct the public hearing, and upon consideration of testimony received, recommend approval of the rezone to Farm Ranch with no conditions. Recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat with 3 conditions. The first one is related to the dedication of 10 feet of additional right-of-way along the full frontage of the property to Mix Road to provide 35 feet of width east of the existing center line of Mix Road to meet the existing collector street standard. And that the applicant construct public frontage improvements along Mix Road in accordance with the standard construction drawings and specifications. And the final condition, the applicant shall enter into a development agreement which allows for the deferral of the following items until the development of the remaining 45.53 acres. The first is the dedication and construction of a collector street that would extend east-west direction from Mix Road to the eastern property boundary at an alignment that would allow for future connection to the 95. Dedication of public parkland required for the proposed subdivision, as well as the remaining 45.53 acres. And then direct staff to prepare the reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards for both the rezone and the preliminary plat in accordance with the commission's recommendation. And I'd certainly try to answer any questions that you had about this.
So any questions for Mike from commissioners? Okay, and can everybody hear me okay? Oh, Joel?
I can see you, but I do have one question, which perhaps just my own interest. The proposed subdivision does abut against the old abandoned railroad line. I'm curious what the ownership of that line is and what the likely future of that land is.
I believe that's been vacated by the railroad, but Scott Becker's here and he could provide a little more light into that.
Okay, so I noticed, Wendy, are you now with us?
I just presumed, Rob, that she seemed to,
She's there.
I see her. Hi, Wendy.
oh, there she is.
Okay, well, all right, so at this point, I believe we should open the public hearing. And we'd like to hear from the applicant for any comments on support.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. I'm Scott Becker with Hodge and Associates, 405 South Washington Street. And I think Mike did an excellent job of explaining the project, so I can answer any additional questions. But as far as the railroad right-of-way, a portion of it has been it's no longer in use, of course, but I don't believe it's all been vacated through that section. So it's possible that in the future that could be vacated, or it could end up as something dedicated to the city. I'm not sure how that will play out, but right now it's, to my knowledge, it has not been vacated. So I think when they vacate it, it'll go half to the neighbor to the east and half to the neighbor to the west. So other than that, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them, but I won't waste your time.
Any questions for Scott? Okay,
I
sorry.
don't think, I've got one silly question. Can I ask a silly one,
Sure.
Scott? I don't know if you're old enough to help us out. Why in the world is Mix Road winding around in such a strange way, do you think? What's it doing? It's almost like it had to go around a little pond or something.
Well, there is some, if you go out there, topographically, it does kind of follow a trail, and I believe it was, you know,
So it
like
was
most.
basically a cow trail. And
Yeah,
then
so like most of the county roads here, they
Yeah.
started out as a deer trail and then wagon trail, and so You know, in Kansas, you get those nice straight lines, and here on the Palouse, we kind of followed the ground a little bit more and worked with it.
Well, it's just so
It
ridiculous.
does wind a lot.
But it has nothing to do with the project, so, thank you.
But I'm still not old enough, probably. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. So we'll move to any other comments of a general nature or in opposition to the project? So, Mike, I can't see the podium, so is anybody else coming up?
Don't believe anybody else is coming up.
Nobody's moving.
Okay. With that, then, we'll close the public hearing, and do the commissioners have any comments as we proceed? And I'd like to also invite Latah County representative to, do you have any comments?
Rob, can you hear me?
I can, Wendy.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really having technical problems tonight. Anyway, I had just a question about, we seem to abandon the railroads seem to abandon corridors and then vacate to property owners on either side. And then in the future, when we want to have a bike trail, it's a big hassle to reacquire them. I don't know if this is an issue with this particular route or not, but looking to the future, I guess I wonder about that.
Scott, do you have any additional information you might be able to share on that issue?
Yeah, Rob, we can look into a little bit farther into the ownership, but from what we found, the deeds still belong to the railroad, and I think it's the Cooley City and, you know, whatever the local railroad is here. So I think that portion is still part of the railroad, even though they vacated most of that to the south and through the city's property.
Rob, I could speak a little bit to that if you would like.
Okay, yeah, please.
Okay, Mari Knott, 522 South Adams. I'm with Latah County Planning and Building. And between that portion of the railroad, like Scott was saying, a portion of it has been vacated, definitely within the city limits. And then along the Charles property, it has been vacated to the south. It has not been vacated along this particular property, which was originally the mixed property. A portion of the Nehanku property to the north has been vacated, and all of the Catherine Orr property that falls just between Catherine Orr's property ends between Highway 95 and the other end of Mix Road, the intersection there, that has all been vacated. So it's really hit and miss where along this this route where it has been vacated and where it's still under the Burlington Northern ownership, which is now based out of, I believe this section of railway is going to Austin, Texas, or somewhere within Texas ownership. I chase a lot of railroad right-of-ways and vacations, and I never know where I'm going to find someone actually to talk to at the other end of the phone.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I guess, Wendy, that kind of speaks to your issue about the fact that it's hit and miss. So Joel, you had a
I was simply going to say that it appears that it's too late to worry about the potential bike lane use of that. It seems to me I remember discussion 20 years ago about trying to continue Moscow's bike lanes up there. And the fact that that discussion has totally disappeared in more recent years suggests that we're too late.
Yeah. So the public hearing, I guess, has now been closed. So I'd entertain a motion for proceeding from anybody. Joel?
I will move that we recommend the rezone as proposed and adopt the recommendations as proposed as a recommendation to county.
And with conditions?
With the conditions as proposed by the city.
Okay, so is that both for the rezone and the plat or just the rezone?
Just the rezone.
Okay, all right, so no conditions on the rezone. So do we have a second on the rezone?
I'll second.
Okay, Dennis second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so we'll move to the next item, and that is approval of the plat with conditions. Do we have a motion for that? Don't
So
ever-
moved.
Okay, Joel, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Dennis seconds. So we have a motion and a second for approval of the plat with conditions as recommended by the city. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so approval of the plat with conditions is approved. And we need a motion for the directing staff to prepare the relevant criterion standards.
Well,
Oh.
since I'm doing it, why?
Okay,
So moved.
Joel again. Okay, anybody? For a
I'll
second?
second. I'll second.
Was that Nels? No, it was Mike.
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 Mike, okay, so we have Joel's motion, Mike second to prepare or direct staff to prepare the relevant criteria and standards. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstention was, so Dennis, that was an,
No, I was just waving goodbye.
okay. All right, very good. So that concludes that particular item. Mike, did that cover all the bases for you?
It did, Rob, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move now to the fourth item, the public art lighting draft ordinance. Mike, you're up again.
Thank you, Rob. This is the public art outdoor lighting code amendment that we've been working on. And if you recall last time, just before our meeting, the previous Wednesday, on that Monday, we ended up conducting a field trip out to the Helioterra at the Wren Welcome Garden, and Scott was gracious enough to go through a few different fixtures and show us different lumen levels. And then we came back to the last regularly scheduled meeting and discussed that quite a bit as far as what we want to see, you know, as far as a lumen cap on public art lighting. And I think the commission at the time really wanted to mimic what we have for the flagpole uplighting. And so that's what we've reflected. We put together a draft ordinance that makes that change. And the draft ordinance should be attached to your packet. Essentially, we're just inserting a section, subsection D, this is on page 2 of the ordinance, that would follow the flagpole uplighting requirements. And so that section would state that public art lighting used for the illumination of government-owned freestanding public art displays, so long as the source of illumination is not visible from any adjoining street or property and the maximum lumen output does not exceed 13,000 lumens in non-residential zoning districts and 8,000 lumens in residential zoning districts. So it would insert that section and then shift, we have a section regarding telecommunications facilities that would just be shifted down to subsection E. So fairly simple amendment. I think hopefully I accurately reflected what you had discussed at the last meeting, and certainly be able to discuss or answer any questions that you have.
So anybody have questions for Mike? Joel?
I assume that by government, that refers to any art that either the federal government or the state government chooses to place in Moscow.
It would, yeah, it would be state, local, or federal is typically what that would refer to.
Joel, do you have a concern about that?
No, I don't.
Okay, I mean, it's a good
I'm
point.
just pointing out that it had implications beyond the city.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because we'd always talked about it in terms of the city's public art program. We hadn't really thought about it in the broader terms, but I don't suppose we're going to see a lot of federal public art projects in Moscow anytime soon. Joel.
I would also comment that I'm happy with the paragraph, and I guess one of the reasons I'm happy with the paragraph is that since we are talking about probably mostly city-owned art, we always have a good forum for complaining here if we don't like the results.
Good point. So, Mike, do you need further? I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
No.
Mike, do you need further direction from us now to proceed, or I assume we don't need a motion on this?
Yeah, we don't necessarily need a motion, but as long as the commission's comfortable, I'd like to notice it for public hearing at at the next meeting we can make, which is probably the second meeting in March.
That works for me. Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, all right, Mike, we'll do that. Thanks, Wendy. Great, Mike. We'll look for that in the March meeting then. So, all right, next item is our commission budget for fiscal 2022. It's kind of hard to get my mind around 2022, but Mike, you had some ideas on the budget?
Yeah, I have a proposed budget attached to your packet as well. This looks like a splitting image of prior year's budgets. Typically, we were just requested $1,500 every budget cycle, and typically that money is intended to go towards trainings for commissioners, a lot of professional development. So attendance at local planning training opportunities, subscription to professional publications and journals, guest speakers, and other professional development and training activities. I know in the past it has been, I'd say, lightly used. We haven't got anywhere near spending this much money, but we have discussed various trainings in the past, and it's all, to bring somebody in to discuss a certain topic has always been a topic of conversation, but it's always been too expensive. I think with COVID and amount of virtual sessions and meetings that are occurring these days, that it might be a little more ascertainable to receive somebody maybe on the national level to pay for a training or talk about a topic or whatever really the commission wants to do. So I was just kind of putting that out there as just an idea. I know that Wendy had brought up as chair numerous times over the last few years, so.
Yeah, and this has been kind of a perpetual dilemma for the commission, I think, trying to effectively use or find items that would be appropriate. I would like to explore subscriptions that we might be able to share, and we can do that downstream, but I guess I'm comfortable with your proposal for the $1,500. I'd like to hear from any other commissioners, and then we can explore better ways to use that.
One thing, you can't see me, Rob, but we did at Preservation, we talked about the fact that while $1,500 almost never can bring an important person to Moscow to give a presentation or do something, the chance of maybe getting somebody to do a virtual lecture or presentation on a topic would be, I think, possible. I don't know what's happening out there, but my guess is that more and more people are using Zooming as a way to get information, and maybe, you can imagine the $500 might be able to get us if we have a topic we want to focus on, we might be able to get somebody from some faraway place to do something for a few dollars, or we couldn't bring him to Moscow, we couldn't bring that person to Moscow, or but we could do it on Zoom. So it's something that we should maybe think about it seems like an opportunity as we get more and smarter about using digital processes.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Wendy, did you have a?
I was just going to agree with Nelson, what you're saying, that we're getting much more proficient with Zoom. I think I'm not so much tonight trying to do it on my cell phone. I apologize for taking so long to try to get connected. But I think that it does open up a world of possibilities of accessing some professionals for maybe a half hour, 45-minute seminar session at some point on a topic that we find appropriate for whatever we're working on at the time. So
maybe one of the ways we could approach this is that if we have a meeting where we don't have a really packed agenda, we could have one of the agenda items is topics that we might be interested in looking at and then exploring some possibilities. So Mike, as we move forward, the amount of money I think is appropriate, but as we move forward, let's kind of keep in mind that there might be an opportunity to talk about it in a little bit more depth, but at a meeting where we're not also trying to conduct a lot of other business.
That sounds good, Rob.
Okay, so do you need a motion from the commission on approving the budget, or do we just move forward?
I would like a motion, please.
Okay, I would entertain.
Move to accept the budget that Mike has provided for us.
Nels, I think Wendy beat you to it.
Okay, I'll second it.
Yeah, so how about it, Nels, could we take yours as a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from Wendy and a second from Nels to approve a $1,500 budget for fiscal 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we got our budget for next year. I believe that starts July 1st, Mike?
October 1st.
October 1st.
Yep.
Okay, I'm in the wrong year. Okay. I get confused about state fiscals and federal fiscals. Wendy? You got your mute is on.
That means that we have most of our $1,500 budget for this current fiscal year that we could apply towards some kind of continuing ed in the Zoom world. Is that correct, or?
We do. Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't spent any of it.
Okay,
Great,
'cause,
okay.
we've had yeah. So that might be something if people want to suggest topics to see if we can find a continuing ed opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And we don't need to wait for a meeting to discuss it. I still would like to put it as an agenda item when we have some time to deal with it. But if anybody has ideas, send them to either Mike or me or Dennis, and we'll get it on the agenda. So,
And Rob,
okay, yes.
and I just wanted to mention, with every, a lot of these events going virtual, a lot of the conferences that occur every year have gone virtual as well, and they're usually a lot less money, and we can certainly use these funds to get commissioners registered, and then you just attend in a Zoom-like platform, and they have a number of sessions that you can go to, whatever piques your interest, and that's probably a good opportunity as well, just to get a lot of cross-training on a variety of different topics. And those are available. So the Idaho American Planning Association, their conference is typically in the fall in October, but Inland Empire, so the Eastern Washington chapter of the American Planning Association, usually conducts theirs in the spring. So as those start to roll out, I can certainly send emails out and forward links if any commissioners are interested in attending them. So
That's great. That would be excellent. I appreciate you doing that. So we'll kind of look at this as not only trying to utilize our fiscal 21 budget, but then obviously moving forward. So, okay, so we'll move to the next item, reports. Joel, I guess you're up for transportation.
Transportation is easy. The usual scheduled time, transportation meeting tomorrow has been canceled. The next, I'm not sure whether a meeting is scheduled 2 weeks hence or not. I'll report later.
Okay, we'll have that on for the next meeting, possibly. Okay, any announcements, Mike?
I don't think staff has any, no.
One thing I will mention, I had been invited to participate via Zoom with the Sustainable Environment Commission, and I was unable to make that. That was Monday. I'm gonna stay in contact with them and see if I could potentially make the next meeting, and we'll report back on that. And Victoria, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay, so you're on the commission, aren't you?
Right. Commission
Oh.
will meet, I think it's next week.
Um,
You're talking about the Climate Action Group?
No, I was just talking about the commission in general. So I'll follow up and report back at the next meeting on that one. So,
Rob?
Yes.
One question I've had, I'm curious what the current state of development, building and so on in Moscow is. What is the pandemic having any effects? Maybe it's a question that staff could present a little bit for us.
Mike, I think you commented on this a couple of days ago. I think maybe we've got some activity in the works. Do you want to maybe give a quick update?
Yeah, I mean, this last year, actually, we've been pretty busy, and I think a lot of the contractors in town have been busy as well. Of course, you have increased costs with labor and materials that are driving up costs all around, and so that's been a kind of a major effect. But yeah, it seems like we're kind of shaping up to be a real busy year. We have a number of subdivisions that are on the cusp of turning in applications, and so I think it's going to get pretty busy for us over the next 6 months, probably another year, maybe 2 years of pretty, a lot of discretionary activity of plats and rezones and things like that.
Well, you hear all these reports of people moving out of cities into small places. Well, we're a small place. I'm sort of curious what's happening.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of that. I've just talked with other jurisdictions around this area, and they're experiencing the same effects of people fleeing from larger places and moving to this region. But a lot of regions out west, I think, are seeing the same trend. So I think part of it stemmed from people decided that they have an opportunity to work remotely. And instead of working in a downtown city somewhere, they can work in the beautiful Palouse and move up here and do it. So we'll see if that continues. But that seems to be the trend that's pretty much full steam ahead.
That's great. So it sounds like we can anticipate some busy meetings in the not so distant future. So that was great. Thanks, Joel. I appreciate you bringing that up. So upcoming events and meetings. Our next meeting is February 24th. I am going to be out of town for that meeting, but I'm available on Zoom. I spoke with Dennis briefly, and if there's a problem with my Zoom connection, he'll jump in as vice chair. So I think we're all covered, but I'll look forward to seeing you all again, and I will really look forward when we can have these meetings in person again. we keep hoping. So anyway, anything else for the good of the order? Any announcements or questions or issues? Okay, well, this went pretty fast. It's only what, quarter of 8. I don't know. We maybe need to drag these meetings out a little bit longer. So, all right. Well, if that's okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Anybody else for the good of the order? Okay, we will see you all on the 24th, and thanks very much. Have a good evening.